Guys, welcome to the Jane B Right Now podcast, where right now I am talking to Imogen Clark. Imogen Clark is an Australian singer and songwriter, and her lyrics are that of genius. Her voice, I can't choose between the voice and the lyrics. She is an amazing artist. I first heard her play at the Petersham Bowling Club, actually, in 2015. It was her auntie, a good friend of mine, who invited me to come and see her niece play. Her voice blew my mind, and then when I found out that she wrote her own music, her own songs, lyrics, I was an instant fan. I've been following her ever since. You can go to Instagram and find her at Imogen Clark, Clark with no E, or you could go to her website, imogenclark.com.au. When we recorded this show, it was about 3.5 weeks ago. We were in lockdown and we were looking at the prospect of another week of lockdown. Well, it's been extended. It's now another 4 weeks for Sydney, and who knows after that. So I've got a feel for these musicians and anybody in the entertainment industry, not just the performers, but all the people behind the scenes. You're going to love this. Now, this is a long episode. I'm not going to pretend it's not. It's quite lengthy. I just found it really lovely speaking with Imogen. She's a woman of depth, a woman of substance, and I had a really great time. I hope that you're going to enjoy this conversation, and I hope you walk away with something. What I walked away with was a better insight into the music industry and what it's like for women, young women in particular, and how they have to really fight a lot harder, especially when they're already established. Anyway, we get into that in the podcast, so don't worry about it. Just listen. You might want to go for a really long walk. It's long. You might want to go for a long run or something, or you might want to take it in bite-sized chunks. But however you do choose to consume this episode, I'm sure that you are going to enjoy listening to the talented and delightful Imogen Clark.
Hello.
How are you going?
Oh yeah, thanks for doing this. This is so fun.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. All my other plans got
I
cancelled.
know.
So I was like, this is perfect. I can actually do this from home. So it's like, when there's like, it's just always so hard when you've got like a few weeks of stuff you've got to reschedule, because then you've got to find other places for those things to slot in, and it's like it's just so weird lately.
I mean, as much as I'm loath to start with pandemic chat, it's unavoidable, because I mean, we woke up this morning hearing that we're having another week of this.
I know. Oh God.
So yeah, that's a massive pain in the ass, but I wasn't surprised by that, to be honest.
No, I've been expecting that for the last few days. I was hoping I was wrong, but I was like, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen. So yeah, we've just made arrangements, but like, I mean, I just announced last night that we've had to cancel half of my tour, so
yeah,
it's not ideal.
Yeah, exactly. And thanks to the football players having their party. Well done,
Love
guys.
That. Thank you, football players.
Don't already have enough permission to continue doing what you're doing anyway. Yeah,
exactly. It's so frustrating. My manager made a joke last night on Instagram, and he was like, I've decided to become a football manager. I think it's going to be a more lucrative business. Like it's so frustrating as well, because not only is it really like terrible disregard for the rules and everyone else is following the rules, so like, why don't you have to? But then also it's like, you're so privileged to be employed during this pandemic. Like so many of us haven't been able to, and you've been able to continue your jobs, and then you're just like, that's how you repay that. Like wonderful.
And
like,
I am so baffled as to how they thought that nobody would know that they're having a party.
It's such an entitlement, isn't it? It's such a state of entitlement where you really believe that like you're above the rules, or that like oh, we'll get away with it because like even if they do catch us, like we're famous footy players, no one's going to care. It's like, you know what, like it doesn't work like that, and they've discovered that. I'm glad that they got such a huge fine because like I mean, I don't know what they make per game though, to be honest. Like maybe
they make it well. The guy that had the party has been sacked. Like he's been sacked
really?
from the Dragons. Yeah.
Wow.
And my husband said they get like $800,000 a year contract. So what a dumbass. Like why would you risk it? That like you said, it's the lack of integrity. It's the arrogance of it. So yeah.
It's so arrogant. Yeah.
But anyway, here we are for another week.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
You're in the Blue Mountains, though. Not such a hideous place to be. I mean,
it's beautiful. It is. I mean, like it's been really lovely during the pandemic. Like, if you're going to look for bright sides of things, which I've been trying to do, is like if you're going to be locked down, there's far worse places to be locked down because we're not sandwiched in between. You know, like we've got a lot of space. There's fresh air up here, and like it's easy to take my dog for a walk and not come across a single other person. So it's like it's you know, it could be far worse.
Yeah. So you've lived there your whole life. Have you lived there your whole life? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So I've always lived here. It's like it's been home for a long time. It's like, you know, again, could be far worse. I'm glad I grew up somewhere that was so, you know, like close enough to the city that you can get in there for a day and come back, but not so close that everything's crowded and the air is still really fresh out here.
Yeah, for sure. We lived in the inner west for about 4 years, and one of the things that now we're in Camden about lockdown is that we were thinking. I mean, we were in a 2.5 bedroom apartment with 4 kids and a cat. We didn't obviously have the dog at the time, but I was thinking, oh my gosh, thank God we're out here now with all this going on, because to have, I mean, like in my little world, I work at a school, so we're on school holidays anyway. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just going out and walking the dog, and there's bush and there's nature, and that's the blessing that I've taken from it, that I'm just kind of, you know, powering down a bit, just doing simple things, and the dog's never been happier. The dog's like another walk.
Dogs love lockdown. I've decided they are the biggest winners from lockdown. They're just like, oh, my humans are here all the time. I get so much attention. I'm probably getting more food because humans are eating and I'm here, and they're probably going to give me a bit of their food. Like, it's just such a good time for them. They're like, what pandemic?
We have a similar dog too. Your dog.
Oh, that's right.
Even your coffee cup looks kind of like.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
I just saw you do that. I was like, what the hell? Our dogs are heaps similar. I've sent you many tags. And yeah.
What's his name?
Zero. It was already his name, so we just kept it. Which it's a funny. Yeah, I wonder if he was the first one born, or whether like they went 0, 1, 2. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I love that name because it's not like, you know, it's just a little bit weird. So that's nice. It's something unusual for a dog, not like, you know, like Spot or something. Like that.
Well, I wanted it to be Fido, and they're like, you cannot do that. I was like, but it's just so cliche and brilliant that we have to. But he's a border collie cross. We don't know what. I mean, it's like speculation city. I'm always coming up to other dogs and going, hang on a sec. He's got the bits of tail like that. That weird,
What is he, a rescue?
Yeah.
So it's hard to know, isn't it? That's the same with my dog Socks, is that, you know, you never know where they come from. You just don't know their story. You wish they could talk so they could explain to you, like,
because he doesn't like being patted on the head. He's always like, and so he's always pushing his neck in, and he loves to be patted there. And I'm like, what happened to you? That, not that I would want to know, but why are you so? Because you go to pat him and he's like flinching.
That's so sad, because it makes me really upset that, because I did read that somewhere, that dogs generally prefer to be patted upwards on the chest and the chin, because it's a sign, it builds their confidence. It's like you're pushing them up rather than patting their head, which is like pushing them down. I don't know. I'm not sure what the exact meaning of that is, but maybe just a bit of an oppressive past.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. Yeah, because that's like a body, like when people do their power pose, you probably do that a lot on stage. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So I wanted to talk about you living in the mountains, and did living in the mountains and growing up there have any influence? I mean, I know your mum did poetry, or is your mum a poet, an actual poet, like job poet?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I mean, she would laugh, she would laugh so much if I said that, because she works in education and writes training materials, but she all her life she's been a wonderful writer of poetry, and she loves poetry and reads a lot of poetry. She used to write a lot more back before I was born, probably just because she had more time, but she's a really wonderful writer, and a lot of her poetry influenced me, but also just like the fact that we had so much poetry at home and that we would talk about poetry. That was a big part of my youth, and I thought that was really normal, that we would like read poetry sometimes together as a family, and I just really, it sort of got ingrained in me from a young age. So then I wanted to start listening to music because I loved the lyrics, and and also growing up, I suppose, out here was a great because it's so secluded, it's been a great place to write songs, so it's all probably tied in there.
Yeah. I was thinking that there must be a huge lyrical influence in that feeling of having just vast space around you, and it's just not that. I don't know, it's something about the environment not having, having moved from the city to out here, not having that pressure that exists even when, even at 9 o'clock at night when nothing's happening, you can feel that you're so close to someone else. So, but yeah, your lyrics, I swear, I remember coming to the Petersham RSL with Ellie, and I can't remember how old you were, like 20 or something.
Oh,
and
that would have been ages ago.
It was ages ago, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll come and see your niece. Like, oh, cute.
Labor of love.
Cute, yeah. This will be fun. And I was just so blown away. I was like, oh, okay, I've eaten my words. Like, this is you.
Thank you.
You really were, your performance, and you're just the lyrics. Like, I love writing. I'm a creative person. I wish I could sing, because then I'd just, you can learn. I could learn. But the lyrics does it for me, like the poetry of it, and that's why I've asked you that. But you've been doing this since you're about 8 years old. I was reading up. You're having lessons when you were 8, and is it right to say that you wrote your first song when you were about 15?
Yeah, I might have actually been 14, 15, something like that. And at that point, I was already playing gigs. So I was playing cover gigs just around my neighborhood, and I liked it, and I always loved singing and playing, but I wasn't in love with it until I wrote my first song and sang that at a gig. And then that was the point where I was like, this is what I'm in love with. It's not just music, it's writing my own music. So that was a big turning point for me. Yeah. So, and I was very young, but I think I wouldn't have found my love of it so young if I hadn't sort of grown up in a pretty musical family.
Yeah, it's a huge influence. And what did your family and friends think of the pursuit of doing it as a full-time career, and not having, like, do you have a backup career? You know what I mean? Oh, you're just doing arty stuff. Oh, okay.
I know, honestly, it's been the weirdest sort of struggle and regular conversation of my life, I think, because when I was in high school, I went to an academic selective school, so it was really focused on academia, and the question that you would get if I really tried in my HSC, and I was really proud of my mark, but then once you get your mark, they'll say, okay, so law or medicine.
Yeah,
like the two of those things. And I was like, well, that just because I might have got the marks to get into those things doesn't mean I'm passionate about those things. And so it was really hard, because some of my teachers were full behind me, and they're going, no, give it a go. You could always go to university one day. You can always do whatever you want at a later date, but give it a go while you're young. And some of my teachers looked at me as if I was completely wasting the the academic education that I'd been given, and that, you know, it was a waste of my ATAR and all of that sort of stuff. And I've really yo-yoed between having the judgment of people and having the admiration of people for pursuing this as a career. Like, some people find it admirable, and some people think it's really ridiculous and silly, and it's probably a little bit of both in a way. But I've been lucky that my parents have always been, you know, really, really supportive of it, and they've always done everything possible to help me achieve my dream of music, even though they understand, as I do, that it's such a hard business and there are no guarantees, but they've always been right behind me. So I don't think I would have been able to do it, especially in those early years, without them.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to ask you that, actually, what if you didn't have that support? Like, I'd imagine many young people don't, their parents would, you know, might sort of insist that it's far too fickle, or it's just not something that they can rely on. Would you have done it anyway?
Yeah, well, you're so right. That happens all the time. And I think it's hard to say. Like, I think I would have, if I hadn't done it anyway, I would have really regretted it later. Like, I think that it would have been possible for me to be influenced if I'd had parents that were saying, you're just going to end up poor, and you're going to have no prospects, and it's going to be, you know, you'll be left behind by the rest of your peers. Like, all that stuff would have really influenced me, and maybe I would have listened to them, but I think I would have come to regret it later in life. Because even now, like, even if I stopped today and never played music again, like, I would be grateful for the experiences I have had in this industry, and I think I wouldn't regret any of it. You know, of course, I'd miss it so much, but like, I wouldn't regret any of the decisions I'd made, because I think it was, it's all sort of been an amazing adventure so far. And I think you're never wrong to pursue something that's in your heart. But I'm just really lucky that I was born with parents who were supportive of it and encouraged me to go for it, even though it's an unlikely thing to succeed at.
Yeah, it is very unlikely. That's why I you know, that night at the Petersham, I was like, oh, cool, oh, cute, your niece is trying to have a little sing. Great. You know, because I've been to so many of them, and so many people struggle. And so, yeah, I love that. You're never wrong to pursue what's in your heart. I'm stealing that.
Yeah, well, I also don't think you have to regret it. Like, you might later in life decide that it's not working for you and you want to go in a different direction, and that's, you know, that's totally fine. But I don't think you ever look back when you're on your deathbed. I don't think anyone ever looks back and goes, wow, I should have done less of that thing that I love.
Right. Like, that's right. Do you ever have any reservations about putting yourself out there for the world to dissect?
Constantly, yeah. I'm constantly worried about that. And like, I am really open with everybody about my struggles with anxiety. I struggle a lot with anxiety and depression, and it's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. So as somebody who's this anxious and this sort of, I feel like a very sensitive person, and I take on board what a lot of people say to me, and it's really, really hard to not get overwhelmed by bad criticism, or just feeling like maybe you're not getting anywhere, like you're spinning your wheels and not getting anywhere, and maybe people don't, or maybe that you're not writing your best material. All those things constantly worry me. Like, I'm always worried about where my next song is coming from. I'm always worried about what people think of me, and I wish I wasn't, but it's just something that I can't seem to work through. So it's really, really difficult being in a business where your whole identity is bound up in the fact that you're putting yourself out there for people to judge.
Being on stage, literally, you're putting out a personality, you're putting out a persona that does it really match, you know, yourself, and are you doing things truly like you're like, if you're writing a song, say you've written many songs about personal things, and then you're putting it out there, and then you may have the judgment that comes back from whether you should have, or is it completely true, or or now that I've put it out there, I can't take it back, I can't hide it now.
It's really scary, and like, I still wouldn't trade it for anything. Like, I'm glad I'm so this is the only thing I feel like I could ever be happy doing. Like, it's my biggest love and biggest passion in life, and I feel like it's what I was born to do. But that doesn't change the fact that it's terrifying to be so vulnerable with people and put yourself out there, because everyone has an opinion, and everyone loves to give their opinion, and they love to think that their opinion is really, really important. So like social media is such a terrible place sometimes. So you have to be really conscious of not letting it get to your mental health. But look, it's a really hard business in that way. Like, it's very rare to have a business where you yourself as a person are a brand. So, like, it's like I'm selling like some sort of soda. Like, if I was selling a soda, that would be the brand that I'm working on. It's a separate thing. But when you yourself are the brand, it's really, really weird and hard to deal with sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not trying to bring it back to me, but this is your interview. But so I have ADHD, so the imposter syndrome, the anxiety, the like, am I being a fraud? Is this actually, and then like worrying about what you've just put out. When I wanted to start doing this, because it's super creative, and I love the fact that there are lots of people that I know that do amazing things, and that's why I wanted to start it. And so I had a friend, and he's massively creative, and he was like, "Oh, we'll just call it like the Jane Bright podcast." And I was like, "Oh no!" I was like, "No." He's like, "Why not?" I was like, "No, because it's too front and center." It's good to be able to hide behind like a name of a show, and similarly to what you were saying, like that's my soda, so it's not me. That's the soda.
I know exactly what you mean. It's really hard. Like, I think that the imposter syndrome is such a huge thing, and I know so many musicians. In fact, I'm not sure if I know a single musician who hasn't talked to me about imposter syndrome and hasn't experienced that, because it's so common to just like doubt yourself and think that you don't belong in the place or don't think you're good enough to be in that place. Like, I was asked a few weeks back by APRA before lockdown. APRA AMCOS asked me to come and be a mentor at some of their songwriting sessions. And I was kind of like, I was so nervous about it. Like, the night before, I couldn't sleep. My heart was pounding. Like, I was so incredibly nervous about giving a couple of like hour-long sessions with sort of emerging to mid-career songwriters, just about my own process and like some tips and tricks of the trade and all those sorts of things. And I was like, why are you so nervous about this? You know this stuff. You've been doing this for like a decade. You know what you're talking about. But I just had this thing in my head, like, why have they asked me? Like, I don't have anything to offer these people. But then when I got there, everyone was so lovely, and they were all so like grateful for just the advice that I could give from my experience so far. And I was like, why did you worry so much? But it's because I had that imposter thing of like, you don't belong here. And I was even going to buy a ticket to be one of the people in the audience. Like, I was actually, before the thing, before they asked me, I was getting ready to, I saw it online, and I thought, I'll buy a ticket to that. I could learn a lot from these people. And they asked me to be a mentor. I'm like, sorry, what?
You're buying a ticket to your own show. Yeah. I don't know if it gets any easier, really, like at all.
Human nature is to, like, if you have any sort of self-awareness, I think humans tend to just be very like overly aware of ourselves and worried that we don't belong. Like, I think that's just a part of being a human. And like, I think, it's funny because, you're worried about that interview, and at the same time he's like, oh, am I wasting her time? Like, everybody always, unless you're talking about these like crazy big superstars who you sometimes hear about being really like really sort of arrogant and thinking that they're so so much more important than other people. Most people, like, most of the time, are just thinking that they don't belong, or that there's something wrong with them, or that they they're not good enough to be there, like, so we all just relate to each other in that way.
Yeah. so just 2 days ago, I listened to the Osher Ginsberg podcast, and
Oh,
he so his last interview was with Hamish Blake, and he was talking about the same thing, about imposter syndrome, and saying like that when he was about to go on air for hosting the Lego show, Lego Masters, he was kind of going, saying to the executive producer, should I be doing that thing? And they're like, well, yeah, you're the host. And he's like, oh yeah, I should be. And he was like, it's still there after all the years that he's been in the industry.
Wow.
But he said that if you start to lose that nervous feeling, then you might as well step aside and let someone else have a turn, because he said that the second you lose that, your heart's not really there. Like that anxiety and that nervousness is actually, it's how you channel it into bringing out the best that you can do. But there's a wall, there's a block that you've just got to push past. And he was saying that, even if he was to go on and he was like, it's just another show, then step aside.
I love hearing that, because like it's so cool to hear that from someone, because that's actually how I felt about it for a long time as well. And like and amazing to hear that someone with as much success as Hamish Blake is like feeling like that. That's amazing. But it just goes to show we all feel like that. But I think that I think it was maybe a Frank Sinatra quote or something that was along those lines, where he says the minute that you stop getting nervous before a show is the minute you should stop, because nervousness, which is something I talk about actually a lot in therapy, and I like to be super honest about the fact that I love therapy and I go to therapy all the time, and I think it's so important for humans. Everyone should go to therapy to understand how their brain works. But I talk about this a lot in therapy with my lovely therapist. She's like, if I didn't, I get down on myself for being so anxious about stuff and worrying about stuff. And she always says to me, but the reason you're worried about this, don't beat yourself up because you're worried about it, because you care about it.
That's it.
What would you do? If you didn't care about anything, you'd be a psychopath, or you'd also you'd have no passion. You'd have no job that you cared about. What would you rather be that? And I'm like, no, I'd rather care a little bit less at times.
Yeah, but not apathy.
I don't want to not care about something, because it means I'm not living really, if you don't care about it.
That's true. Yeah, that's exactly right. And trust you to throw in a Frank Sinatra quote.
I wonder if that's that's maybe potentially where he heard it through the grapevine, is somehow through, because I think that's quite a famous thing that Frank Sinatra was. I hope that I'm right about this. I could be very wrong, but I feel like it was Frank Sinatra.
I'll check it first before I publish it.
Yeah. It's so funny. I'm just spouting these quotes from someone not even Frank Sinatra.
When you were 20, I'm just going to throw something that you said at you when you were 20 years old, because that's always fun when people do that.
Oh my God, I love that.
It's nothing bad. It's just that you said that you draw inspiration from people you meet and people that you travel and meet. Would this still be where most of your inspiration for songwriting comes from?
Well, it's been funny because the last 18 months, there's been no travel. So I haven't been able to meet anyone. It's been very rare that I've met new people. It's been really weird. And so I've had to almost figure out a new way of getting inspiration. And I've been reading a lot, which is something I've always wanted to read more. I always felt like I didn't read enough. So as of the pandemic starting, I've been reading a lot, and that's been giving me ideas, poetry books, and even just other people's circumstances, which is sort of I got put on that direction by Taylor Swift, who I'm a huge fan of, and she's released 2 records during the lockdown, Folklore and Evermore, which is in some of her best work, I think. And she said that she sort of stopped writing autobiographically for these records. She was writing almost entirely fictional. She had characters that would weave in and out throughout the whole album. And that sort of stuff is really interesting to me. And I've never been great at writing from other people's perspective and writing things that aren't autobiographical. So it's been interesting to try that. And so, really it's been since I said that, I've had to really evaluate how to get my inspiration when I'm not on the road, because mostly I'm inspired when I'm on the road.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I read that. I thought, okay, so when you're on the road and when you're traveling and you're having experiences, not just, I guess, the people that you meet, but you're having experiences and the stories that you hear. So where would you get, I mean, being in lockdown, a lot of people would say, oh, well, it's a great chance to be creative. But if you're someone who sources that inspiration from life and regular life activities like traveling, even if it's traveling through your state or doesn't even necessarily have to be overseas, but the fact that we haven't been able to do any of it, when that's taken away from you, where do you find it? And I think it's really interesting you've just brought up doing something from your perspective, so writing a song from your perspective versus I straight away thought of the song, I'm gonna draw a blank, it's it's an old 80s song that I used to work on the dock. What one? It's Living on a Prayer. Yeah. So he's like telling the guys version, then telling the girls version, and I went, oh yeah, that's a song where he's stepping back and telling a separate story. So I've never really thought of songs in that way.
Yeah, the thing is, my songs have always been so autobiographical. Like, I feel like there are things that I care about that aren't just like, it's quite self-involved to be like that. I'm like, oh, all I ever write about is myself. Like, I care about things outside of my own world. It's just that when I try to write about them, sometimes it feels insincere because I feel like I'm worried that it's not authentic enough because I might not have experienced that. And therefore, what if I'm writing about it in a way that doesn't ring true? And that's what I want to avoid always in my career, is having people think that I guess, again, it comes back to that faking it thing. I think I'm a fraud, or think that I'm not portraying something in a way that feels real, because I always want people to know that my songs come from a really raw and real place. So if they don't believe that, I feel like a fake. And that's probably what has led me to write mostly autobiographical things up till now. I'm trying to sort of expand myself and be able to write from a place of empathy, but maybe writing about things that I haven't necessarily been through.
Who was the artist? Is it Taylor Swift who everyone was scared to date her because they were worried they were going to get a song written? Was it that? Was it her?
That was her. That was a huge period of time where, like, and it was so frustrating because, like, I've always been a huge fan of hers. I found her music when I was about 15, and I've like loved her forever. I think she's one of the best artists of our time. I love her. And that period of time was such a clearly sexist media thing, because all that was happening was the media were going, don't date Taylor Swift because she'll write a song about you, and they were going, look at all this list of men that Taylor Swift has dated in her life. I'm like, you're not doing this for the men, like nobody ever puts up a male artist and goes, look at this male artist writing love songs about all the women he's been with. I'm like, well, we applaud Ed Sheeran for that. We love Ed Sheeran for doing that. We applaud Bob Dylan for his songwriting, confessional songwriting. So why are we calling Taylor Swift crazy and a man-eater just because she writes songs about her relationships that everybody writes about their relationships? It's like,
it was a bit of a targeted thing.
Yeah, she got eaten up by the media, and it was just so unfair. And she talks about that now, and I think she's just navigated it so well. I'm such a fangirl of hers, but I do think that as an artist and as a career woman, she has just knocked it out of the park. Like, she's navigated every piece of shit that the media have thrown at her. She is like turned it into gold.
Yes, that's right. And she has, she's taken charge of it. Hasn't let it control her. She's steering it. So there was that documentary. Hey, is that her documentary? God, I keep having to check with you what I've seen. Like, I can't remember. That was Miss Americana. It was very good.
If I get really down on myself or my career, or I'm feeling like lacking in motivation, I sit down and watch that documentary. I reckon I've watched it 4 or 5 times since it came out, which was only like, maybe start of last year.
Yeah.
And so I just find it inspiring. I think she's my ultimate sort of role model, I think, for being an incredible businesswoman. I mean, she is head of the table. Like, she sits at that table and she is the head of the business, and she really, like you said, she steers it. And she's been through so much shit with, you know, all that stuff, all those dramas that people have sort of dragged her into. And I think must have been so disheartening for her at times. So it's wonderful to see like that documentary and see the sort of ins and outs of it. She's inspiring.
How would you say that because there would be an element to your business that you would have to please people, I guess. So how do you simultaneously please people in the industry while sticking to your moral compass? How would you, because you're a businesswoman, really, in charge of your own brand in pretty much a similar way to Taylor Swift.
Thank
how
you.
How would you navigate that yourself?
Oh God, it's a hard question, and
write a song about it.
Yeah, totally. Well, like, and I have done that. Like, I am a total I'm an oppressive people pleaser. Like, I'm such a people pleaser. It's so hard. And so I find it really difficult because I do want to always like try and make people happy, but I have to remember sometimes that it's not about that, you know. It's when you're writing a song, for example, like you might be writing a song with a group of people, and somebody disagrees with your idea or you disagree with their idea, and you don't think it's going to be good for the song, and it can be really awkward, and you can want to just go along with it just to please them. But the truth is, you're all on the same team. You're all going for the same thing, which is making that song the best song it can possibly be. And if that requires a little bit of awkward confrontation, it's got to happen. And it's the same in the business side of it, not just the songwriting side of it. Like, I've had multiple scenarios where, you know, I often find myself in a room full of, middle-aged men who are in positions of power over me, and, not so much anymore. Now I'm an independent artist, but it has happened to me a lot over the years, and it feels really intimidating, and you can just want to bow down to whatever they sort of want you to do. But I mean, it can be easy to like feel that you just need to say yes to make these people who are in power above you happy. But if you disagree with them, it's your career. Like, that's what I always have to remember, is like, people pleasing only goes so far. It's my face that's on the front of that record, and at the end of the day, it's not really reflecting on them if something is wrong, but it is reflecting on me, and I need to speak up about that.
And your latest song, Bastards, I do remember reading that you had a bit to say about the way women are treated in the music industry. How bad does it get?
Look, it can get really bad, and I feel like I haven't even touched the surface of what people have experienced. Like, I feel like my experience has been fantastic compared to so many other women, and yet I've still experienced some shit. It's just, I don't know if you've seen, but as of the last few weeks, there's been some really big things happening in the music industry, as far as there's been the head of Sony has been sacked, and there's been huge inquests into the treatment of workers at Sony, and the bullying and harassment that's happened there behind the scenes for many, many years. And a lot of that has involved women, you know, feeling uncomfortable in the presence of more, higher powered men in the business who have been really inappropriate. And I think, you know, that's not something I experienced personally because I never worked with Sony, but in general, this stuff is coming out so much, and these experiences are, these women are being really brave and coming forward about all these things they've experienced, which are horrendous. And I think that, you know, in general, I always think that women have to work twice as hard to be considered with even half the respect of their male counterparts in this, you know, in this industry, and probably in all industries, I'm imagining. But it's really hard for women. Like, again, bringing it back to that Taylor Swift documentary, there's a part in it where she says, the female artists I know have had to reinvent themselves more than anyone else I know, because it's you're constantly being reassessed. People are saying, do you deserve to be here? You know, prove us wrong. We don't think you're good enough, but prove us wrong, and excite us and keep exciting us in new ways, but only in ways that we don't find too challenging and that still relate to your just there's so many rules, and you just don't feel like these rules are really necessary for the male artists. I don't know, like,
oh yeah, I just realized that. I was running through my head as you were speaking about all the male artists that have had a long career and how many times they have had to alter their image even, or their sound, and it's not often. It's not often.
Absolutely. And you think about female artists and how many times they've kind of revamped their image, they've renewed their creative sort of presence in the world. And you know, I have to stop myself, because I have a lot of ingrained sort of sexism that I've just learnt from, you know, just from living in a society that condones it and not even realizing. Like, I've been saying to myself lately, like, I am 26 now, and I have been having so many existential crises about the fact that I'm in the second half of my 20s, and the way that music sometimes makes you feel, this industry, is that women in the second half of their 20s are already on their decline. And that is so ridiculous, because when you think about it, songwriters only, like, the idea of being a songwriter, you exhaust, like, the more you absorb and live your life, and the more experiences you have, the better songwriter you're going to become. And yet we're taught to feel that women reach their prime at 20 and then go downhill after that, which is ridiculous. Like, you're only just getting started then. And I feel like I'm only just getting started, but I have this idea that I won't be, you know, if I'm a woman in my 30s, I'll be done, you know.
No,
and that's
no,
crazy.
Look at Amy Shark.
Absolutely. I'm trying to believe that is not true. I just have to get it through my head. It's almost like you get ingrained with these weird ideas that the media makes you believe.
Yeah, well, it's almost like a rule book that you're following, like an unspoken one, really. But I was talking to my kids and I was like, oh, is Billie Eilish still cool? They're like, no, like, it's what? Olivia, what's an Olivia?
Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah. They're like, no, God, it's Olivia. And I'm like, wow, that was 2 years. Yeah, that was quick.
Attention spans feel shorter. But you know, if an artist is great, they have longevity. I mean, oh my God, I'm just going to continue talking about Taylor Swift forever. I mean, you know, it just relates so much. Like, some of the stuff she said relates so much to what we're talking about. And, you know, she was talking about when she made her album Red. I think she was about 22 at that point, and she was saying, I had already been in the limelight for quite a few years at 22, and I realized that I needed to go in a new direction to keep fresh in the public mind. Not only was her creativity telling her that she needed to try something new, she believed that she needed to excite people and not just make the same record again. She had to go in a completely new direction, which she did with her next album, 1989, which was completely pop. And I think, you know, that's so smart to sort of have that knowledge of, like, I don't want to be this flash in the pan artist. I want to be this artist with longevity who can be around for a long time, and not just somebody going, oh, that was 2 years ago that we liked that person, and, you know, they just had a quick little spot in the limelight and they were gone. But that is so hard to do as a woman.
Oh yeah, and you know, like you've got substance, you've got creativity, you've got as you said, the older you get, the more stories that you have and the experience that you have. So on paper, it should be pro 25 plus. And even in life, like, if you're going to get advice from somebody, well, you're not going to ask a 22-year-old for advice over like, I mean, not that I have good advice, but I'm 39, and I would kind of be offended if someone was like, oh no, I'll just ask that 20-year-old, down the road for advice. But yeah, when it comes to, it's just, and I guess with going back to the parents not wanting their kids to be in the music industry, probably this is the fickleness that they're reacting to. But I think it's, I didn't know about the head of Sony. That's I mean, it's all, I don't know, I'm conflicted. I want to say, I think it's all changing. And then I see that Bill Cosby gets released from jail and Britney Smith, like, what the heck is going on?
It's very frustrating and very up and down. And, I mean, at least it's a step towards something good. I think, I think it's been so many decades of, stories that, again, I won't get too much into it because I don't personally know the stories at Sony, having not worked with them. But I think, the stories that came out from anonymous victims just saying things like, they'd been inappropriately touched or had inappropriate advances from, people in higher positions and men in higher positions. And then they'd gone to their fellow colleagues and said, should I report this to HR? And they, unanimously told that any reports to HR are just going to, if you report it, you're probably just going to lose your job. So you're best to just stay quiet. And that sort of culture is so rampant, and it's frustrating when you hear, like, that happens in so many industries, I think, but you hear that all the time where people go, well, why didn't they come forward earlier? Well, no wonder they didn't, because they thought they were going to lose their job, and they thought they might not work, in the industry again, or they might be blacklisted by their employer, or they're just going to be subject to people judging them and saying that they're probably lying and all this sort of, like, I wonder why they didn't come forward earlier.
Oh, yeah, it can be. And it can be so arbitrary. Like, I think a lot of people would say, well, then I'm just going to quietly make notes. I mean, that's the acceptable thing to do, isn't it? Look, don't say anything, just quietly make notes. Then when it gets to a point where it's getting really bad, it's kind of like, the new school up the road, like, oh, when are they going to put a crossing in? Or probably when a kid gets hit by a car, then we'll put a crossing in. Like, things like that. Like
preventative measures rather than corrective measures.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we got real deep and depressive. I feel really sad about life now.
Well, that tends to happen when people spend time with me. They get really sad about life. Sorry.
No, that's not true. All right, so let's go over to the fact that we were talking about when I'm not going to mention T Swift, but some artists, they do like to evolve through, obviously their storytelling and their career. Your first album was in 2016, Love and Lovely Lies. Yes. How would you feel looking back at that album? What is that album to you 5 years later now? Because you've had 4 in the last 5 years. Is it 4
Yeah,
albums?
that's right. So 2 full-length albums and 2 EPs.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's funny because, like, it feels like a million years ago to me, but it also feels like yesterday in some ways. Like, it's been such a seamless transition between all these things, and I feel like I've grown so much, but sort of it's happened really naturally, the growth. So it's funny when I look back on it, I listen to the first album, like, every now and then I'll just, because I never listen to my own music, because all I hear are the mistakes I've made or the things I would change, and it stresses me out. But every now and then I'll just put on, like, Love and Lovely Lies, and I'll just listen to it and I'll go, no, I'm really proud of this record. And it's so obvious. It's so obvious how much I've changed when I listen back to that one, and then I listen to Bastards, this newest EP, because when it's like when you spend every day with someone and they get taller and taller, but you don't notice it because you see them every day. But then you, like, if you see photos side by side, you're like, oh my God, you're so tall now. But it's like that with these records. I didn't notice the changes I was in it that much, but when I listen to them back to back, I'm like, wow, this is astronomical amount of change. Back then, I wrote those songs when I was 18, 19, 20, I think, and I, produced that record alongside a couple of friends, and, it was really homegrown and super casual, and, like, in a garage down in Gippsland, like, so fun and just freewheeling and no real rules or time constraints. And it was a different kind of music. Like, I was making sort of folk country Americana at that point, and I love that music still. It's just, it didn't sustain me creatively. I just wanted to sort of move a bit out of that area and maybe more into like a rock, indie pop sort of world as time went on. But I love that record, and I'm still so proud of it.
Yeah, and I remember the flowers.
Oh, I used to wear flower crowns. Yeah, that was my era. Flower crowns. Yeah.
Oh, the flower crowns were great. They were that, honestly. And that's not sarcasm. I really liked it.
Thank you. It's so funny. I look back at it and I'm like, my long, super long, curly brown hair, and now it's short and black, pretty much.
I know, but you chopped your hair off, and I was umming and ahhing about chopping my hair. I mean, like I chopped it to about here as well. Yeah, and I did, like, because it was long. It wasn't as long as yours.
That's awesome though. How freeing is it?
Oh, that was so great. I was like, but I did it on Instagram Live with a friend of mine.
Oh, I love that. Good idea.
I'll have to send you there's a video.
Were you scared? Because I was quite nervous. I knew it was the right thing to do.
Well, for you, like you said that you had grown your hair forever, right? So I've gone grow it. Like, what should I do? What should I do? But I was like, no, I'm definitely going to grow it for about 2 years. And then, it's just, I think it's, for me personally, I just think it's my ADHD where I'm like, I'm bored. What should we do? I have to change it. Like, so yeah, that was actually that made for an excellent music video clip when you chopped your hair. That was Forget About London.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. That's lovely. That was actually, I can't take credit for that idea. That was my wonderful manager, Jeremy Dillon. He's like my best friend / manager. And he, I was talking to him for so long about wanting to cut my hair. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to cut my hair off. And I couldn't get the courage up to do it. I was like, I've got to do it. I want to do it, but I can't. And then he was like, why don't we make a thing of it? Like, if you want to cut your hair, let's make a thing of it and film it, and we'll put it in the music video, and we'll make it part of the plot line. And I was like, that is such a great idea. So I was so glad we did it, because it made me definitely commit to it, because I had to do it once we decided that was going to be the plot of the video clip. But also it meant we captured it on camera, so it was really fun. It was a nice way of like documenting that change. And then it was kind of metaphorical, because it was representative of the fact that I was like cutting all of the old sort of stuff.
I just wrote that. Representative of the situation you were in. Yes,
exactly. I was like, out with the old, in with the new. I'm a new woman. Like, it was really fun.
Yeah, it was well, the message was there. It was so obvious. And with the lyrics and what you went through and everything, like, that's a thing. And it is so seamless. Like, you've managed to the music, the songs that you've produced, like, they're not just sporadic. They don't seem like they're just, here's one about this and here's one about that. They do, and even they do tie in, and even the albums, like even the your outfits, like even the styling, like it was so. I remember, did the suits come in with what album did the suits come in?
The suits came in with The Making of Me.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, a little change, but it wasn't like, oh, now she's in leather. Like, she was in flowers and now it wasn't that much of a change. It was just okay. And then the suits started getting like the patterns and then the colors. And I was looking through all the different suits, and I was like, oh, it just seems in my mind like they're all quite similar, like it's a theme, but they're all very different. When I really paid attention, I was like, oh, that one's a completely different color, but it's the essence of the costume, the outfit, which I would imagine is imperative when you're making music videos. The visuals have to match up to the audio and the storytelling.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, what I mean, thank you for noticing that, and I'm really glad that was the message that sort of came across, because that's what we wanted to convey, was the idea that, like, as my music is growing in a sense more powerful, I wanted the image to also appear powerful, and I wanted to feel more powerful and confident in myself. And wearing suits always feels like a a real sort of statement of power and confidence. So that was part of the decision to introduce that into the aesthetic.
Yeah, the black. I know. Every time I wear a blazer, I feel like a CEO.
A blazer will do wonders for
Yeah.
a girl mindset.
Like, just a blazer. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
great.
pretty sure I put a blazer on for a podcast I did with these guys in America, and now I look back and go, "You loser!" But it helped me. Like, I was like, "Oh, I feel dressed. Like, I feel
exactly. Whatever helps." And I also love wearing suits because it also gives me the freedom of movement on stage, because like I don't have to be in a skirt and worry about moving around in it. Like, I can just jump around and be in pants, and it's easier. You know, it's like the whole thing is very we thought about it pretty heavily before we did that.
Yeah, it's got practical and functional reasons as well as artistic.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have absolute control over that kind of design, or does there have to be some sort of compromise with your manager?
No, we're very like
he seems like a cool guy, by the way.
Oh, he's the coolest, and he is also like the most hilarious person. Like, his sense of style is second to none. So like when we go out somewhere together, like in the times when people are allowed to be out of their house, he wears the best suits as well. And so like we'll just be out together like in our suits, and like I always feel upstaged by him, and I'm not even mad about it. I'm like, you know what, we walk the red carpet together sometimes, and at the Arias whenever the Arias last happened 2 years ago or something, and he walked the carpet with me, and he had this amazing suit on with like that he'd had specially made for him with pictures of a cat, that his friend's cat that he used to live with in Nashville, who only has one eye, and it had like cats with one eye, and like it was just the most insane thing. And people kept commenting like, not many managers can like show up their artist on the red carpet. I was like, hey, I don't mind, because like I love it. I feel more stylish just by standing next to him. So yeah, he's one of my best mates, and like we have such a great working relationship and a friendship outside of our working relationship, which is, why I trust him wholeheartedly with my career. And I love the way we work together, because it never feels like anyone has full control over anything. Like he will never demand anything of me in the same way I will never demand anything of him. We're both working towards the same goal, which is to, get the music out there and evolve as an artist. And he's just like, he's done absolute wonders for me and for my music and my career. So yeah, it feels like everything is collaborative with Jeremy and I. Like, we're a team.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you find him?
So Jeremy and we met for the first time in Nashville back in 2014, and we were both at the Americana Festival there, and I was playing a show like with a bunch of Australian artists, and he was there. He's always worked as a promoter. His father, Rob Potts, had a business, or has a business called Potts Entertainment, which Jeremy was working for that business at the time, and he was there sort of as a delegate as part of the festival. And we met and made friends. We started working together on music videos, so Jeremy's directed all my music videos to date. And from that friendship and that relationship as a director artist, we then decided a few years back now, 3 years back or 4 years back, to start working together from a manager artist perspective. And Jeremy is now the CEO of Potts Entertainment after his father Rob sadly passed away a few years ago. So he's just a wonderful influence on my career. I love him very much.
I have a question for you. Do you ever wonder if you have accidentally or will accidentally copy a melody?
Oh,
is that a worry? Because that's what I think of.
I'm always stressed about it. Like, if I come up with a melody that I like, I'm like,
how do you know? Like, because there's only, in my mind, right, there's only, how you hear about it, like, oh, someone's suing someone because 30 years ago. I'm like, but there's only so many notes, right? Like, surely.
Oh my God, it's stressful. It's very stressful, because like, it's not, it's very hard to know. Like, sometimes I'll write a melody and I'll think, I love this melody, but like, is it mine, or have I subconsciously stolen this from somebody. And so I have a friend, Darcy Fox, who is an excellent artist, and she will often we'll do this vice versa. She'll often like send me little voice memos on her phone going, I just wrote this song, but like I'm pretty sure I stole this melody. Like, where do you recognize it? Because I can't figure out where it's from. And so like we'll do that a lot because it's really frustrating. And I spent a lot of time a few weeks back, maybe it was in another lockdown, I can't remember, but I was it was when I was flooded out of my home by the North Richmond Bridge went underwater, so I couldn't get to my house. So I was staying at Jeremy's house in the city, and couldn't get home. So I was doing some songwriting while I was sort of stranded there, and I spent a few hours on this song that I was like, I really love this song, and then I realized that it was Viva La Vida by Coldplay, and I was like, yeah, I can't rip this song off. Like these, I'm pretty sure Coldplay are
you're not going to get away with that one.
I'm definitely not getting away with that one. And I was like, I just had no idea. And I was like seeing this melody that I really liked. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And, damn it, I didn't write it.
Yeah, because that would be trust me to go to another anxiety topic, but yeah, I'd be like, oh, I can't. Not only do I feel like an imposter, what if I put something out there and then go, oh shit, I'm gonna have to retract it, it's not mine.
Oh my God.
But I'm sure you have many ears and many second and third pairs of ears to double check it for you, which is really good. True, everyone's got each other's back. Here's a few of my favorite lyrics from you. First one is from Bastards. It's so okay. Bastards is so catchy, but not in a bad way. Like not in that, oh, it's a poppy. It's very empowering. It's very like, I'm gonna show you. And the lyric,
that's exactly what I wanted.
Oh, I'm gonna feed you your pride on a silver spoon. Oh my God, it's just so clever. It's amazing. It's so good. Next one I really love. Tell me if you won't know your own songs. I'm gonna make you guess. Oh, hang on, I should start with I'll end with that one. Okay. So I boarded myself a ticket to my next big train wreck.
Oh God, from Drawing Hearts,
right? Yeah.
Wow. Gosh, that was a while ago.
This is an impromptu little game. How good.
I love that.
I was just going to tell you my favorite ones. All right, next one. So I boarded my ticket to my next big train wreck. It's how? Like, explain that. How did you come up with it?
You know what? Like, I feel like I think I wrote that song in like 2015, or maybe it was 2016, shortly before we recorded the album. But like, I remember just being like, that whole record is like about sorry, there's dogs barking next door.
I heard that. That's all right.
The whole record is about just throwing yourself, throwing caution to the wind and throwing yourself into love and romance when it presents itself, even though you've been hurt before and you probably will be again, but it's sort of better to have loved and lost, that sort of thing. And so that line is really like, I bought a ticket to my next big train wreck. It's like I kind of willingly went into this thing knowing that it was going to end in total disaster, but hey, it's going to be a fun ride.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, exactly. So good. More recently, Chained to a Pedestal You Built for Me.
Oh, Found Me.
Yes. Can you tell me about that?
So, I mean, that song was written when I just got out of the longest, most serious relationship I'd ever been in. And I was at that point sort of just finished touring Europe and the UK, and I went over to America to tour with Clare Bowen. And Claire and I ended up sitting down with her husband, also excellent songwriter Brenton Robert Young, and we were all just talking about it, and Claire and I were sharing sort of past relationship experiences, and they really became a bit of a shoulder for me to cry on during this time when I was dealing with this breakup and I was away from home and loving the touring and everything, but going through this personal heartbreak at the same time. At the shows, I used to be like, anyone put your hand up if you've going through a breakup, like, and it was just like, come and talk to me after the show. Like I was so like in this weird place. and I use the tours as a bit of a flotation device. But you know, the conversation between Claire and Brandon and I just started to develop around, you know, how you can be grieving a relationship ending, but you can at the same time be feeling like you're on your way to finding the strongest version of yourself because of that breakup. Like sometimes it takes, and it doesn't mean that that person was horrible or a bad person. It just means that sometimes you're not right for each other, and you need to lose that person from your life in order to actually gain knowledge about yourself. So Chained to a Pedestal you built for me is like, sometimes, you know, someone can put you up on this pedestal, but it actually kind of damages the relationship in a way, because you feel like you can't actually be real with this person, and you can't really kind of live your proper truth because it's just not right, you know?
Yeah 100%. I think you know, I've gone through that definitely, and at the time when you're in it, you think that you need to be in it, and it's that forced release from it. And then in retrospect, you can say, oh, I'm really glad I'm not in it now, because otherwise I wouldn't be, you know, A, B, C, D, E, whatever comes next.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really, that is a great song. There's now, this person doesn't sound like they had your best interests at heart. We don't have to talk about the person, but in a handmade paper boat with rocks tied to my feet.
Oh gosh, that is, yeah. So that's a song I wrote with Anita Lester, who's a Melbourne artist, amazing artist, who like singer-songwriter but also visual artist, and she created the music video for this song Paper Boat, which is just so spectacular. She's beautiful, so talented. And we both had experiences with toxic relationships where we'd been in situations with people who kind of promised the world but never delivered, and people who would say one thing but do another, and, you know, manipulate you, make you feel like, you know, the analogy of the sort of paper boat idea is like something that appears to be sturdy and safe, but then also is capable of crumbling at any moment. So it's that sort of unpredictability of it that makes it so devastating. And we both had those experiences in the past, so we wrote that song about those relationships.
Yeah, and I don't think it always has to be a romantic relationship.
Oh no.
Like, yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, here's another one. You have loved a version of a person I was prouder of, but I am not that person anymore.
The making of me.
Yeah. That's quite recent. That was a 2020 song, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that lyric.
Yeah, so that song was written in around the same time as Found Me was written. So it was about the same breakup. And what happened was, again, before that tour, so after the UK Europe tour, I was sort of stranded in London waiting for my visa to come through so I could go and tour with Clare Bowen in America. And during that time of being stranded in London, I was staying with my friend Georgia Mooney from All Our Exes Live in Texas. And she very kindly put me up on her couch, and I was playing at her piano and just thinking about the fact that, you know, the end of the Europe and UK tour was also the time when my relationship ended. So I was just like right at the beginning of this breakup, feeling completely unmoored from everything that I had relied on and everything that I thought was permanent, and just feeling so up in the air and weird and devastated, and grieving this relationship in a foreign country. And so I sat down at George's piano, and I just had this idea that, like, if I could just make it through this year, like just make it out the other side of the year, I'll be a stronger person for having survived it and for having been through that challenge. And that was 2019. So then when 2020 hit, even though I didn't write the song about the pandemic because I wrote it before the pandemic, it took on a new meaning to me. Now when I sing it and when I hear the song, I think about all the people who've just had the worst year. And I think about, you know, sending it out to them, because it really is just about white knuckling through a hard time. And that line about, you've loved a version of the person I was prouder of, but I'm not that person anymore. That's relating to that breakup that was just making me feel like I felt like the person that was in that relationship and the person that he had fallen in love with was not the person I was now, because, you know, I had grown so much in the time that we'd been together, and I felt like I had totally changed as a person, and that we didn't fit anymore. And that's horrible when two people grow at a separate rate, you know, and you just don't fit like you did when you started the relationship, and it's hard to come to terms with it, but sometimes you just need to.
Yeah, for sure. I wish it was a forced form of therapy, songwriting. Like, don't you think more people would be have so much more insight into what they're feeling if they were forced to write a song about it?
Yeah, sometimes I figure out how I feel based on the song. Like, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. I'll write a song about it and see. Like, it's such a good form of therapy. I swear, it's like, if I don't know what I would do without songwriting. Like, it's the most therapeutic thing for me, getting over something.
Oh God, I used to write poetry. I used to write poems as an angst adolescent.
I love that.
And I still have them. And when I look at them, I think, oh Jesus, you are one sad little girl at times.
Right, you got it out.
Like, you know, but it's just the emotions of that age and stuff, and teenage breakups and stuff. But
writing poems about it and getting out in that way is so much more productive and better and healthier than you know, like going and trashing someone's car or
or getting wasted. Yeah.
Exactly.
I still can't listen to I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. I cannot listen. I can't. That was a moment in time for me.
Oh yes. Yeah, I understand.
All right, so I've got another one, and this might be hard for you. I don't know. This is a lyric of yours. 6 a.m. It's foggy outside the window as I rise. Pick up the guitar, a pen and paper. My house is silent and the city looks so pretty where it sleeps. And I'm just thinking about tomorrow. How do you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh my God, I do. It's some Monday song, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Since 2010.
Wow. See, the funny thing is, like, it's amazing that you know that lyric, because like you can't get that record anywhere. Like it's not on streaming services, or
it's on YouTube.
Like, is it on YouTube? Oh,
it came up.
Yeah. Is it me playing it live, or is it a recorded version?
It's you playing it. It's so cute too. And it's great that you have it, because it'll be great in 20 years to
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's so easy. It would be so easy to listen to a song I wrote when I was 14 or 15. Like, that was I think that was probably the second or third song I ever wrote. And like, it's so funny, because like it's easy to listen to that and be like, oh my God, like how embarrassing, I was so little, and listen to this way my voice sounds, I'm such a chipmunk, and like listen to those lyrics and I could do it better now. But like, that's not the point, you know, like the point of it is, like, at that time I was 15, and like that's what I was thinking about, and that's how I felt, and that's where I was at that point. So I've always tried to write like how I am at that age, you know, like, and I think that sorry, I think the mailman is here, and my dog is not liking it at all.
We have the same situation here at our house. The difference between you at 15 and me writing poems at 15, I will just let you know that this is your poetry at 15. I don't know much about the universe and all its theories, but I know you and I should be. I don't know much about the rain and abstract poetry, but all I know is you and I should be. Mine is like, I was feeling so sad and so bad in so much pain in the rain. So I wouldn't feel like you need to cringe at your own writing.
Look at
it. It is a super talent. Like the fact that you were that age when you wrote things like that. It's so impressive. I love words. I love the power of them. I love lyrics are just, you know, I can never have respect, but I have a severe, like, it's down on the list of favorites, put it that way, songs that do not have that powerful creative lyric to them, that it's just yeah, it sounds good, or yeah, it's a beat, but it's if it doesn't have that substance to it,
exactly. It's not enough for me without the lyric. Like, I'm so invested in lyrics, and I, you know, when I look back on that, and thank you for saying that, and thank you for bringing that up, because like I think it's really great to just be celebrating the person and the artist you are at those periods of time. Like, you know, that record, Sky Stand Still, was like, you know, I don't really count that as my first record just because it was like recorded at my house. It was more like a demo, but it is really, I guess it is kind of technically my first record, but like those things, like that's who I was at 15, and then Love and Lovely Lies is who I was at 20 or 21, and you know, it's just great to look back on it and see almost like I'm listening to my diary at that time. So
I love that. Yeah, that's really good. It is. It's like your diary. It's like your it's like your real life
audio diary.
Your audio diary. Yeah. Tell me about the gig with Shania Twain.
Oh,
how that came about. And I mean that you have worked with so many people. You have worked with and done pre-shows, and I have a list. I mean, you know who they are. The list is somewhere, but okay. Like, so Deisel. All right, who should? All right, I'm going to ask you about Shania first.
Sure. Yeah.
How did that happen?
Okay, so I have an incredible agent who books all my tours and shows. Her name's Jess Wust. She's like a total boss woman, like love her to pieces. And she's been working with me for a few years now. And she, unbeknownst to me, pitched me for that show because the Shania Twain tour, they already had a support, Bastian Baker, who was following them around on the whole tour, but on occasionally they'll have a show that needs two supports, so they need an extra support. And my agent had sort of pitched for it, just, you know, secretly without telling me. And then one day she called me and I was driving and I had her on speakerphone and I was like, you know, what's going on? And she was like, so I have some kind of good news. And she told me and I just absolutely flipped out. It was just one of the most exciting, you know, you get used to in the music industry having a lot of rejection and a lot of disappointments. And so when something good like this happens, you just celebrate it like so much because it just doesn't happen all the time. And you get a lot of no's before you get a single yes. So this was just so exciting. And look, the gig was incredible. It was the largest audience I've ever played to. It was at an outdoor arena, Hope Estate. So I think it was about 17 or 18,000 people. And it was absolutely amazing. Like I was shaking like a leaf and jumping up and down backstage to try and like harness my nervous energy by like, you know, getting a bit of like just movement going.
And
and it was so much fun. Like it was just like it went like a flash. It was about half an hour and honestly just a beautiful experience.
And also I can't remember, was it was it Collide? You worked with Deisel.
Yes, yeah, Collide.
You worked with Deisel, like what year how old were you? What the hell?
Gosh, okay, so we recorded, I think I first supported him in 2016, which was just something that, again, my agent was like, hey, do you want to do a couple of shows with Deisel? And I was like, I would love that.
You're
and
like, oh, no, thanks.
Yeah, no, I think I'm busy that night. But I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. And we ended up getting along really well, Mark Lizotte. And he just, like, I woke up the next morning after we'd played this great show together the night before. I think it was in Nelson Bay or something. And I woke up the next morning and he had emailed my agent and said, I'd love to have Imogen on the whole tour. And I was like, what? So I was so excited because we just had a great time chatting about Bruce Springsteen and Joni Mitchell, and we had similar influences. And I thought he was super interesting. And I love chatting to him. And he obviously, saw something in me and extended that opportunity to me, which was so brilliant because I'd never been asked to support an artist on a whole tour before, only one-off shows. So that was my first time doing that. And I just had the best time. I think to date, we've done like 3 or 4 full tours together with me as his support. We've been all around Australia together. I love him to bits. He's been an amazing mentor to me. And then I asked him to produce my album. So that's how that came about.
Yeah, wow. We've talked about everything.
I think we've solved all of the problems.
I think I think we're married.
Yeah, one would talk to someone for an hour and a half, that's pretty much a proposal.
I know. Look, all right, I got a few. All right, we're just going to end. We will end with a few of your favorite things. All right.
Yay.
Number one, instrument.
Ooh, dulcimer at the moment. That's my favorite.
What's
it's
that?
It's a lap. It's an Appalachian dulcimer. It's what Joni Mitchell used to play. She made it sort of pretty famous in popular culture, but it's an old Appalachian instrument that sits on your lap and you play it.
I've seen you do it. I just didn't know the name of it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's my favorite right now because it's new and exciting.
Oh, that's awesome. And the thing that I went blank on was I was going to talk about the Joni Mitchell tour that I have tickets to, and I'm really looking forward to coming to.
Oh, I'm so sorry we had to reschedule it.
No. Yeah, so you should be.
Yeah, it was my fault. I was the one that gave everybody COVID.
Yes.
But once it does happen, once the show does happen, it's going to be really fun.
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. All right. So what's it called? That instrument?
Oh, it's the dulcimer.
A dulcimer.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Look it
just
up.
Write it down. I'm going to look it out. Yeah. It's really cool. I'll try and play it. Artist.
Oh, Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Animal.
Dog.
Coffee. Like watch a coffee.
I usually get a soy latte with honey, which is what I'm drinking right now.
Nice. Food.
Sushi.
Dessert.
Ooh, cheesecake for sure.
Oh, same. Same. My husband made one last week because we were like, we're making one.
That's what I should do when I'm in lockdown. Why haven't I made a cheesecake?
Make really few, yeah, because you'll eat the first one pretty quickly. There's 6 of us in this house, and he made a cheesecake, and I was like, okay, so that's gone. That took a day to make, and now it's gone.
So Moorish.
Recreational activity.
Ooh, probably walking my dog or running with my dog. Yeah,
same actually. Movie.
Ooh, my favorite movie is called...
That's such a hard one.
It's very hard. I probably have a few, but one of them is I love Shawshank Redemption. I love a movie called Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, which is great. Good Will Hunting. I have too many.
Nice. Yeah, good. All good
Blues
movies.
Brothers. Oh my god, how could I forget?
Blues Brothers. Color.
Blue.
Okay. Time of day.
Ooh. Like when it's just about to get dark, but it's not. What do they call that? Is it dusk?
Dusk. Yeah.
Dusk? Yeah, I love that. Where everything looks like all the trees look like silhouettes. I love that.
Yeah.
That's when I normally run. That's when I go for a run. Oh,
you're on the other end of me. So I'm dawn. Like I'm up at like 5:30. No, that's not no. No, because you're a musician. You're on the stage at that time. So
yeah. No way. I'm normally still up at that time if I've been at a gig.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and finally, do you have a favorite go-to energy pumping song when you really need to lift your mood?
Ooh,
what would that be?
That's a good call. It's probably like it'd probably be like something from Springsteen, like Born in the USA, or like Glory Days, or No Surrender, like something from that album by Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, because he's got so many great like uplifting, like energy songs. So yeah, that's probably what it would be.
I wasn't expecting that. I'm so happy that I was surprised by that answer. Not by the artist, but I was thinking it would be more recent. But that's
like Taylor, again, maybe. Like,
yeah, maybe it would have been. But that's something I think. Like I know that I'm not just trying to like suck up to you, but you honestly do, like you have a maturity that's, I mean, now you're 26 now, so it's expected, right? But even back, when I first saw you, you had the same sort of, and watching you on socials and everything, like that same sort of emotional maturity and mentality. And I think having an appreciation for literature and artists that are good artists, respectable artists, would probably have a lot to do with that.
Thank you so much.
Talking about your shows, where can people find you? Where are your next few shows happening? Let's just say that everything will end up being fine in a week and a bit.
Yep.
I mean, I know I've seen you had to reschedule a Queensland one.
Yeah. So unfortunately, So the Joni Mitchell show is now on the 5th of August in Sydney. I had a tour for Bastards, the EP launch tour that was going to be heading to Queensland throughout August, but unfortunately, like after postponing it twice in the last 12 months, we're going to have to fully cancel it just because we cannot sort of risk it at the moment. It's just it's too many snap restrictions and it's too hard to guarantee, which is so heartbreaking, and we didn't make the decision lightly. But I will come back to Queensland as soon as I can, hopefully early next year. We'll just see how we go. But the rest of that tour will be going ahead, which is Sydney, Melbourne and Newcastle. All those dates are on my website, imogenclark.com.au. Some shows, show out in the Hawkesbury in September. So it's all hopefully going to be okay. See how we go.
Yeah, let's hope so. And where can people find you on socials? You've got your website, but Instagram. If they just type in Imogen Clark, you will come up. They can't miss you.
Clark with no E. Yeah, Instagram.
Clark with no E. Yeah.
I spend my life saying that. Clark with no E. Okay, thank you so much for having me and for all your kind words and all your support. It really means the world to me, and it's lovely to be able to have a conversation like this even in a lockdown. So thank you. Yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Hopefully see you in person once this lockdown's over.
Yes, I'll see you at the concert.
Yay, can't wait. Thank you so much.
No worries. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Jane B Right Now podcast. Thank you for tuning in. You can find Imogen Clark on socials at Imogen Clark, or you can go to her website, which is imogenclark.com.au. Don't forget there is no E on the end of that. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Until I speak to you next time, take care.